you won't be disappointed that you clicked on this video. Today I'm gonna reveal you one of the best kept secrets of the French cuisine in a simple and affordable way. By the way, Happy New Year and thanks for staying loyal to the channel, or welcome if it's your first time. A new year, new possibilities, new cooking adventures. And if you want to be part of it, feel free to subscribe. On this channel we make simple vegan alternative, mostly French because I'm French, but really anything is possible. Feel free to leave your suggestions. I mean, we make 4 different cheeses under 1 hour in an instant cheese series, so from there anything is possible, really. So for the recipe today, there's a little bit of a backstory for the recipe, but also a personal story. But if you don't care about that, move to the timestamp here below. For the recipe today, we move to the south of France in a place called La Drôme. So La Drôme is a really beautiful place in the south of France with nice river, a nice mountain called Le Vercors, but also nice landscapes and a very good climate for growing vegetables, some sparkling wines and fresh herbs. And this is often a misconception we have about French cuisine. We think about a lot of meat, but actually it's not that makes French cuisine unique. It's the techniques through which we flavor our food with fresh herbs and with vegetables. And that brings us to the recipe today. What is the main flavor giver is the cooked parsley. Don't worry if you don't like parsley, when it's cooked it actually tastes nice. So this cooked parsley is really what gives the flavor to the dish, and that's why the version with dairy tastes so similar to the vegan version, because it's actually this fresh parsley that gives not only the healthiness but also the great taste to this recipe. This recipe is called raviol, but not to confuse with ravioli, but the Italian play a part in it. So this recipe already exists in La Drôme since 1807. So it's in the 19th century that Italian lumberjacks moved to this place called Le Vercors, this beautiful mountain, and there they took with them the pasta aspect of this recipe, and it was married with the French cuisine, which gave birth to this raviol. And this is a good reminder that that culture doesn't exist in a vacuum, and by being open to migration and other culture, you can also make your own culture more rich. This is my favorite childhood recipe, and yes, I was born and raised in that region. That's maybe why I like it so much. But this recipe is also popular in the rest of France because of its really rich taste, but also its versatility. This raviol can be freezed in and you can just take them out, boil them, have yourself a really nice dinner under 5 minutes. But you can also fry them or saute them in a pan and serve as a party snack. You can serve it on pizza, you can serve it in an oven-baked dish together with other ingredients, in a salad, from which the French lentil salad with a lot of iron and protein, if that's something you pursue. So the possibilities are really many. And all these recipes I talked about, we will make them in the second part of the video. And in the third part of the video, I'll show you how to make them without oil and in a way that has more protein, if that's something you pursue for this new year, but also if you want to vary a little bit and have something that is less heavy on the stomach, for example, if you eat it in the evening. Well, I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as I do. We start with the filling. Start cutting the parsley. If you don't like fresh parsley, don't worry, I do neither. It tastes bad raw, but cooked it actually tastes good. We need a lot of it, enough to fill a pan, 4 to 5 cups. Then put 12 tablespoons of refined coconut oil in the pan. Refined coconut oil doesn't have much taste. You might need to heat this coconut oil up before placing it because it's hard on room temperature. If you have the same than me, it becomes liquid and translucent when hot and white when on room temperature or in the fridge. Alternatively to coconut oil, you can use margarine, which is vegan butter. It might seem like a lot of oil, but it's a big batch. Also, the original recipe uses high-fat cheese, so don't worry putting this much oil, and I will show you at the end of the video how to do it without oil. Put this on a middle fire and saute until the color becomes darker. Then in a food processor, put silken firm tofu, which is about half a block, so for me it's 175 grams of silken tofu, or a cupful. Add 5 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. This adds the cheese flavor. It's an ingredient used in a lot of vegan cheeses. By the way, I have 4 videos on how to make vegan cheeses under 1 hour. The links are in the description in case you're interested. Add a teaspoon of salt or half a tablespoon, as you see me do here. Add 3 tablespoons of garlic powder. Add a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Press half a lemon inside. Add the cooked parsley to this and mix together in the food processor until having a semi-homogeneous structure. We move on to the dough part of the recipe. In a bowl, mix 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of water and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Hold the dough for a couple of minutes with very clean hands. By the way, if you want it to be higher protein, just use whole grain flour. This is what we will do for the protein-rich version of this recipe, aka the health version if you prefer. It also tastes more nice with whole grain flour. You can also choose to leave the oil out of the dough or reduce the quantity to keep it oil-free. Although I wouldn't do it because it's such a little oil for such a big batch, it would hardly make a difference in how much oil per unit you're consuming. Then when you're done kneading the dough, make a long form of it and cut it in 10 small pieces. Then spread a lot of flour on the table and roll this dough out with a rolling pin. Make sure to turn the dough around so it catches as much flour as it needs in the process of becoming thinner. Otherwise, it will stick on the table or on your rolling pin. If you have a pasta machine, by the way, now it's the time to use it. But in case you don't have it, just know you'll be fine just with a rolling pin. It might just take a little bit more effort. Then fold this and put it aside. You can put it on a pile, it won't stick together if you proceed to the filling right after this. And that we will do. So with our filling in a piping bag or just a plastic bag with a hole, just like I have, you come laying the filling in small mountains a few centimeters from one another. If you're not experienced, you want to prefer leaving a little bit more space between the mountains and trimming it away after you're done. Because if there's some filling in where you cut, it won't stick together and it will open during the cooking time. Then you fold the dough on itself and come and cut it with this special knife. It looks like a pizza knife, but it has some curls in between. If you're not experienced, you want to prefer leaving a little bit more space between the mountains and trimming it away after you're done. Because if there's some filling in where you cut, it won't stick together and it will open during the cooking time. You can use this right away or freeze them in for a month. If you do that, put baking sheets between each layer of the ravioles so that they don't stick together. So as we've seen, there's different ways to prepare this raviol. One of the simplest ways is to fry them. For example, in your salad or as a party snack. Put your pan on middle heat and add the oil. If you don't want to use oil, you can use a vegetable broth. I like to use truffle oil because it gives a delicious and luxurious taste, but any kind of oil will work. Prefer an extra virgin olive oil. Then flip the ravioles until they are fried on both sides. You will see they turn slightly golden. Then put them in a bowl and wait a little before serving them. They can be very hot. So the quickest way to prepare them, if you don't really have time, just to take them out of the freezer if you freeze them in, boil them, eat them like that. That's a possibility as well. I've done it many times. So this version is lower in fat. You bring the water to the boil in a pot, then put the ravioles in a drainer and put this drainer in the pot with boiling water. You put them there for about 2 minutes, a little bit more if the raviol pasta is a little bit thicker, a little bit less if you have a pasta machine and got a very thin pasta. By the way, make sure your drainer tolerates heat, so forget about a plastic drainer if you're going to do this. Mine is metallic. You'll notice that during the cooking process, these ravioles turn more green, contrary to when you fry them, they turn golden. And you can just serve them like this, as a snack or as a meal. And serve it with a little bit of margarine in between so that it doesn't stick to each other. But you can also eat them in a salad, as we talked about. There's different possibilities of salads, and one of the most healthy one is with French lentils. French lentils, or lentilles du Puy, as we call them in French, called from a specific geographical area in the middle of France. And these lentils have the specificity to keep their texture, so to not get a little bit mushy. I don't know if that's the right word. But they're also really high in iron and protein, if that's something you pursue. Another way to use it is in what we call in French gratin. So the dish with ravioles will be gratin de raviol, as we call it in French. I don't really know how to say gratin in English. I don't know if it's a concept that even exists. When in the translations I thought a casserole, an oven-baked dish, but really if you know the answer, please comment, because I've tried to find a translation for a very long time. Anyway, it's just a way to bake the ravioles. You can bake them with zucchini, with spinach, there's many different variations. Today I'm going to show you a version with potatoes and shallots. You start by cutting the shallots and saute them a little bit until they become slightly translucent. You then take a glass of milk, plant-based milk, and then put the cinnamon and the teaspoon of salt inside and mix a bit. Then in a shallow oven-proof container you layer the raviol, the shallot and the potatoes sliced in small pieces, and mix this milk in between the layers. Then bake in a preheated oven on 390 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius for 45 minutes. Now we move on to the part where we make them really healthy. They're already healthy because of the fresh herbs. If you didn't know, fresh herbs have so many health benefits. It depends on the different types of fresh herbs. The healthiest option is to vary a lot in the herbs you eat. Variation is always good, but also we make them now with a very high protein version and very low saturated fat, if that's something you pursue. I'm not saying that we shouldn't eat fat, but it's nice to have some variation. I'm going to show you a few things that you can use really in any kind of cooking to make it less full in fat, but also really nice in taste. So now let's dive in. For making it oil-free and healthier, we actually start the same for the filling. We give a rough chop to the parsley and put it in a pan, but instead of the oil, put a cup of vegetable broth. Mine is salty, so I don't put salt afterwards. You saute this and then put it in a food processor with the rest of the ingredients. You add the same ingredients except of the oil. To this you can add some spinach if you like. I only had half a cup of spinach that came from a frozen packages. You can add a whole cup. And then you mix. Then here you can add an extra step. If you mix this too liquid, you can reduce it on the fire. Also, I prefer to have the spinach more cooked, even though we're going to cook it later when we cook the pasta again. Alternatively to this, you can also put less vegetable broth when you saute them, but I think it's nice with a little bit more vegetable broth. It gives even more flavor. Optional but nice is to add some tahini. Also feel free to make this in large batches, freeze it in. You never know when you come home from work and you really don't want to cook, or when you just feel like something really delicious in a few minutes. Feel free to subscribe for weekly videos. Also, I have an Instagram page where I also publish the recipes, both in French and English. Well, thanks for stopping by, and I see you next week.